Okay, so to do the Baker Boy hat, you will be needing your fabric. I've chosen a very, very fine corduroy fabric, and that's going to affect the way I lay out my pattern shortly, so I'll tell you about that. I've got the Petersham here, just navy. This blue I think is close enough to be a nice lining for it, so there's that. I've got my pattern pieces, my peak, my plastic one for the peak, my pumpkin piece, which I'm going to cut 8 of, and the band, which is floating around somewhere. I've also got a plastic folder, which has got a really nice flippy cut front cover. So I'm actually going to end up with a coverless folder because it's the perfect consistency for our hat. Now I'll put everything else aside. Now, in order to fuse your fabric, you need to lay the fabric down, face down on your ironing board, get it all nice and smooth, and then lay your fusing on top. Again, keep it nice and smooth and match it up as much as you can to the edges of your fabric, because if you accidentally iron over the edge, you're going to find that you've fused it onto your ironing board, which I don't think you'll be terribly happy about. So that's sitting there nice and smoothly now. I won't do it all with you here, but I'll do some. I've got my iron, and I've also got a calico pressing cloth, because that helps the fusing not pass any stiffener up onto the, or fusing up onto the iron. So it's a little bit of an overkill. Now you'll notice that when I iron, it's moving really slowly. So you do not need to rush your iron about. And that's often when people say, oh, I tried to fuse my fabric and it wouldn't fuse. The reason is often that they're trying to go too fast. So if you keep that nice and slow at this stage, and if you're feeling game, you can do it without the pressing cloth, but for my money, it's just a handy thing for you to know about. And then if you change your mind and decide that's not what you need to use, then you'll be fine. So again, the fusing for this one is nice and soft. And again, I'm just going to cut that level with the edge of the fabric, and that can be reused on something else. So, hang on. Now, when I peel this apart now, I can pull that and it's stuck. You can give it a second press when it's been cut out, but we always like to fuse the fabric to the interlining, into the the fusing before we cut out, because that stabilizes everything. When some fabrics, when you pull them on the bias, they give a lot and they can become misshapen if you cut them and then try and fuse them. So it makes the job altogether more difficult. So I'll keep going with this until I've got enough fused. And remember, you can fuse the whole lot, especially if you think you're going to make more than one hat, but you may even just decide to estimate how much you're going to need. Just leave a little bit of extra just to help you, not get in trouble when you're laying out. And remember the grain lines. If it's a normal fabric that doesn't have any grain, doesn't have any patterns or anything of that sort, you can just do them on the diagonal, and that makes the fabric sit really nicely. But with the fabrics like this that have a line in it, I'm going to be doing these all on the straight grain. Now, the only downside to working on the straight grain is that there's no margin for error. So if you're confident with your sewing skills, you can do it on the straight grain. If you're at all in doubt for your first one, you might be better off choosing a fabric that is able to be used on the bias. And the other thing that I need to say is that I'll most likely, sorry, I'm umming a bit today. I'll most likely put some of this on some Shapewear so that I've got a slightly stiffer band. So you can decide which parts of the hats you want soft and which parts you want firm, and build that into your preparation.